I'm Tiffany, and this is from Mamaw's Kitchen. This is where I get to share with you the old-fashioned recipes and skills that I learned from my Mamaw in her kitchen. I am working on some of my cast iron today, and I've had several questions about cast iron care, seasoning cast iron, washing cast iron. So I thought we would talk about that today, and I'd show you what I'm doing. I have a few new pieces that I got when we went to the lodge store, the factory store, when we went on our vacation to Tennessee. I got several pieces that were seconds, so they had minor flaws that didn't affect their function, but yeah, some of them I'm still struggling to find what the flaws are. So I got a really good price on some cast iron, and so they're pre-seasoned a lot of times when you buy them new, but I think they need some extra seasoning, so I'm going to be adding that onto my new pieces. And then I had a couple of pieces that had gotten pushed to the back of my cabinet that needed some attention, like this one here. This is actually a skillet that I got when we got married. Someone gifted us some old skillets. They're the smooth surface skillets, but it just needs some attention. The process is the same. It's just with older skillets. So if you find one at a thrift store or a yard sale that looks a little rough, go ahead and get it. It just needs some attention and it'll be like new. Cast iron is amazing. With older pieces, you may just have to give them a better scrub to get some of that off, rust spots or anything like that. I'm just going to use some soap and water and a good scrub sponge. I have seen some methods where people will use the self-cleaning option on the oven to strip old skillets, or they'll use something like an oven cleaner, Easy Off or something, and put it in a bag for a few days, or a vinegar solution. I've never had to do any of that. Just good soap and water and scrubbing has done the trick, and then you can re-season them. So the process is the same. You may just have to scrub some of those old pieces a little bit more before you get started. As far as what oil to use with seasoning your cast iron, I am going to be using this Krispy Kreme and the Crispy stick today. I've been liking them. This one is a grapeseed oil and beeswax mixture, and this one is sunflower oil and beeswax. I've used just sunflower oil before. I've used lard. I have used coconut oil before, but I've enjoyed using these. I'll leave a link for them down in the description box. That's what I'm going to use today. You want something that has a pretty high smoke point, and you want to make sure when you're seasoning these that you're heating them to a temperature that causes that reaction to season your skillet. So I'm going to go ahead and get my oven preheating to 400 degrees, and then while that's preheating, I'm going to give these a wash to get them ready to go. Let me jump in and elaborate on the oil of choice real quick. I just felt like I could add in some extra helpful information here. So there are so many things you can use, and whatever you have, you can probably use. My suggestion, so I know I mentioned coconut oil. It's not going to harden as well as some other oils. So I mostly grab for coconut oil if I'm just putting a quick layer on it. Maybe I had to use a little bit of soap on my cast iron and I'm just putting a real quick layer back on it. Sometimes I'll grab for coconut oil. I just probably wouldn't use it as a base layer. Using something with a high smoke point, it's going to keep you from getting a smoky pan when you're using it at high temperatures. So if you use an animal fat, people have used animal fat to season cast iron for a long time. Perfectly fine. I have done that. If you're using something with a lower smoke point though, you may just notice a smoky pan from time to time. Echo, stop. So using something like an avocado oil or even Crisco, my mom used Crisco shortening. They have a really high smoke point, and you won't notice that smoke when you're using your skillet or your pan or whatever at a higher temperature. And I've just been grabbing for sunflower oil lately for so many different things. It's just something I have really enjoyed using, and I notice myself grabbing it for all kinds of things lately. I'm using a Scour Daddy and a little bit of Dawn dish soap and giving this a good scrub. You could use steel wool if you needed to, if your cast iron was really bad or in really bad condition. But this will do. what I need it to today. Y'all, don't be afraid of cast iron. It really isn't difficult to take care of. You just want to make sure you have a good seasoning on it, and you want to use it often. The only time I would use this much soap and scrub it this much is when I'm re-seasoning, because otherwise it just doesn't need it. And you want to protect the seasoning you have on there, not take it off. I'm not afraid of soap on my cast iron though, y'all. If you've got a good seasoning on it, a little soap's not going to hurt it. As I'm washing these, I'm going to go ahead and put them in my oven that's preheating, so all of this water will evaporate and dry off. I love cast iron. If you didn't already know that, it is so stinking incredible, and you really can't mess it up. Y'all, it could be crusty, rusty, orange, and you can still fix it. It's all figure-outable. My mom, she had told me she bought a sign that said that, and I loved that. With cast iron, it's all figure-outable. It's never messed up. Cast iron is a healthier option for you, and y'all, we're talking about pieces you can pass down for generations. These just came out of the oven, so they're still hot, so I have to be careful how I handle them. You could let them cool off if you wanted to, but I'm just going to put a little bit of oil in. I'm just rubbing this stick on here. You could put a little bit of your liquid oil, whatever it is you're using. And then I'm going to take a paper towel and rub it in really well. Hey kiddos, let's be quiet for a minute, okay? Thank you. You don't want oil pooling on here. You just want a really thin layer. We're going to repeat this a couple of times since we're re-seasoning. So we're just going to do a few really thin layers. And where I'm rubbing the handle, I'm going to rub the sides, the bottom. I do like using that stick while the pan is at least warm, so that it kind of melts it just a little bit. If you were already using a liquid, it wouldn't matter so much, because we're going to put this in the oven now that's preheated. I'm going to put it in upside down. That way if there was any excess oil, it would drip off. But I wipe mine pretty well so that it's just a nice thin layer. We shouldn't have any problems with extra oil. Here's a little before of this one. I'm going to show you how much better it looks after we wipe some of this on it. Look at the difference in that already. And it's not even been heated yet. And it's just one thin layer. See, it melts down as well when it hits that warm cast iron. Cast iron itself is very porous, so what we're doing here, this whole process, is filling in those pores and then heating it up to harden it. That's why we season our cast iron. I'm going to leave those in the oven for an hour, 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to let them cool. And then I'm going to repeat the process again. I'm going to put another layer on them, preheat the oven back to 400 degrees, put them back in for an hour. And I'm going to do that probably 3 times. And we'll see what they look like. After I have used a cast iron skillet, so this, what we're doing right now, we are seasoning these cast iron skillets. After I have used them, you don't have to go through this process every time you use them. If I've made something like cornbread, I just wipe it out and then it's good to go. If there's something that's stuck on a little bit, I'll use something like this Lodge scrub brush. This is a new one. And scrub off some of those pieces. I'll use some salt to scrub some of it off. If it's got something on there that for some reason is just really giving me fits, I'm not afraid to use some soap and water on my cast iron. But if I use soap and water, I go ahead and put some more oil or one of these products all over my pan after I've washed it, and I put it in my oven and let it heat up. I don't always leave it in there for the hour, but I let it heat and then turn the oven off and let it stay in there and cool. And I try not to use just a ton of soap on it, but if I do, I always add another layer of oil or whatever product I'm going to use, and I stick it back in my oven and let it heat up. Then once it's cool, you just store it. It's really easy, y'all. It is so easy. I'm trying really hard not to make it sound complicated because, you know, I'm sharing all this information. I feel like information overload sometimes can feel a little much, but it really isn't complicated. I'm just trying to share all the information with you so that you have it. It's easy. You're gonna love cast iron. Time for round number 2. It's much later in the afternoon. I went through 3 rounds of seasoning or oiling and waxing because my mixture that I used to have wax in it. But oiling my cast iron, putting it in the oven, letting it bake for an hour, letting it cool down at least a little bit, and then going through that process again. I did that 3 times. I think with the products that have the wax, they really need that 3rd, even 4th time going through that, and then they have a really nice seasoning on them. I did go ahead and pull those out of the oven, and I took just the tiniest amount of the oil, wiped them one more time, and I put them in the oven with the oven off, and I'm just going to let them cool down in there. I did get a little clip that I'll insert so that you can see how beautiful they are. And now they're ready to go. I'll care for them like I explained to you earlier whenever I use them. I'm going to keep working through over the next few days all of those new cast iron pieces, making sure they have a good seasoning on them so that they're nice and ready for me to use.
Mommy.
Yes, darling.
No.
Trying to find somewhere quiet around here right now. It's just about impossible. We got a busy house tonight. I'm going to go and spend time with them. Y'all get in the kitchen and make memories of the people you love. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.
Bye.